Good evening to those who have joined us live as we broadcast this live in June of 2022, and welcome to this month's edition of Taylor Tuesday. I am Dr. Jeff Lehrman, shareholder with Taylor Medical. With me, co-moderating, is Dr. Andy Baccia, also a shareholder with Taylor Medical, and our guest, who we are pleased and honored to have join us tonight, is Kevin Rosenbloom. Dr. Baccia will provide a more formal introduction of Kevin in a moment. Many of you know Kevin, a longtime supporter of podiatry and generous supporter and contributor to our profession. Many of you know him from lots of the shows that we attend, and Kevin is really, in addition to the products he helps offer us to help us help our patients, a tremendous supporter of our profession. This webinar is being recorded, as is all of the Taylor Tuesday webinars. We have dozens and dozens of these now. We've been doing them for years. If you go to the Taylor Medical webpage at taylormedical.com, you look in the top right-hand corner there, you'll see the word webinars, and there is a large library of webinars there and information that is helpful, and that will, of course, include tonight's webinar, which is being recorded. If you don't know what Taylor Medical is, or you are not currently a Taylor Medical member, Taylor Medical is a group purchasing organization. And when you are a member of Taylor Medical, you have access to significant discounts on many of the products that we purchase. If you purchase it for your office, anywhere from a patient chair to paper that we put in the printer, it is very likely available through the Taylor Medical Group Purchasing Organization, and very likely less expensive than what you would be paying outside of the group purchasing organization. That's how it works. They negotiate on our behalf. And when they have a very large number of people purchasing, the vendor, the person making the sale, is more likely to make what they are selling available to us, the purchaser, at a more desirable cost. If you're not sure, if you're thinking, I don't know, I already have a pretty good deal on the stuff that I purchase, Taylor offers you a free cost analysis. You can really easily just send your most recent form that you have with the items that you've purchased, even if it's just manufacturer numbers, SKU numbers, units, and prices. Taylor will run that for you. You don't have to do it. Right? You might think, well, I'm going to have to sit down and compare side by side. We'll do it for you. Taylor will do that for you and give you a very real representation of what your costs are today versus what your costs would be through the group purchasing organization. And if you aren't in, can't encourage you enough to do so. A lot of what we do in practice management is thinking about how can we have a more efficient, profitable practice. And sometimes that's making more money, but sometimes you can be more profitable by spending less money. And one really good way to do that is to make the purchases that you make in an intelligent way through a group purchasing organization. If you're interested in this, you can email Taylor Medical using the email on the slide here, which is admin@taylormedical.com. Really easy email. I'll repeat it, admin@taylormedical.com. With that, I will welcome in Dr. Baccia, who is a shareholder with Taylor Medical, and he will introduce our guest, Kevin.
Thank you, Jeff, and welcome everybody to yet another awesome Taylor Tuesday webinar. And today we will have with us Kevin B. Rosenbloom. He is a sports pedorthist and a biomechanist. Focusing on foot and lower extremity adaptation and function. He's a clinician helping patients with foot, leg, hip, and back pain in Southern California. Mr. Rosenbloom is also a researcher, a speaker, an educator, and a lifelong scientist. Kevin leads the team at KevinRoot Medical, and he's the CEO. He leads to empower clinicians as well as clinicians worldwide, and help patient performance and outcomes with innovative orthotic and shoe gear technology for the lower extremity. KevinRoot Medical creates custom molded orthoses, braces, and shoes, and they continually adapt to the latest technologies, work with the best materials available, and provide state-of-the-art orthoses designed to keep people comfortable. With that, I will let Kevin Rosenbloom take it away.
Thanks, Dr. Basha. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I am super excited to be here to talk to you about our technology and our laboratory and how we can save you money and grow your practice using your smartphone, and some of the pearls I'll hopefully leave you with. And then, of course, if you're interested, we have a whole team of people that can meet with you, myself included, on a one-on-one and dial in all your questions. I'll probably speak for about 20 minutes, and then at the end of the presentation, we can have some Q&A time, answer some questions. There's usually a lot of questions after I give this presentation. I will basically just start talking about the iPhone and the history with the TrueDepth sensor, which is what is built into the speaker if you have an iPhone 10 or later. And essentially, the little history, in 2013, there was an Israeli company called PrimeSense that was purchased by Apple that specialized in producing this little sensor, which, if you guys remember from high school, the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, it triangulates. It's a little bit of basic trigonometry. And this is how you measure and kind of triangulate with GPS in a car, satellites, and you essentially have the same thing happening right in your phone right here. So when you look at your phone and it opens up right away, what actually happens is an infrared light is on your face, and then just about a half an inch over on the other side, there's a sensor that senses this pattern that's put onto your face. So it's really cool. When we're on a webinar like this, I can hit a demo scan, and then you can see the little orange light. So this is the infrared light that's illuminating, and that's the sensor. And that actual space between the two is one side of a triangle. And what happens is it illuminates on your face, and the software gets the biometric layout. So if you remember setting up Face ID on your phone, on your iPhone, you look at the camera and you spin it around, and there's a little green circle, and it has you go both ways, and you kind of set it up like this, and boom, it knows what your face looks like. If you guys remember, before that, there was a thumbprint, and it was about 1 in 50,000 people could kind of break the thumbprint. And now it's like 1 in a million actually can break the facial recognition software. Some of the questions we get asked are, does a photograph, allow you to access your iPhone or actually get the shape of your face? No, it's not 3D. Another quick question I'll just jump into: if you don't have an iPhone and you're on an Android, our software doesn't work, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be paying attention, because you can buy an iPhone now for $215, a refurbished one, and have it as a dedicated scanner system for your practice. And even if you don't want to use your personal phone, or what a lot of our clients do is buy these iPhones and have them dedicated for each location in each practice. And that way you can kind of separate your personal iPhone with your clinic iPhone. So I figured that I will go through a little slideshow, and then I'll have Lisa come on, my model, and I'll do a scan, and I'll show you the whole process from end to end, from beginning to end here. So let me share my screen, and let's go to, I figure we're going to go right here. Hopefully this is coming in clear with everyone here. So this is just kind of a breakdown I was talking about before. The infrared camera, the flood illuminator, and the dot projector are these 3 pieces right here. And frankly, you are going to see with the iPhone 13, it's actually getting smaller, and some pictures of the iPhone 14 have leaked, and the camera is getting smaller and smaller. So one of the things that we've had to do as a company is make sure we're staying in front of the hardware. And this is one of the reasons it does not work with Android, is that the hardware with Android, there are hundreds of Android models. Android is an open source system, where iPhone and Apple is a closed system. So if we design something for Apple, it's going to work anywhere in the world if you have an iOS operating system with this hardware, and it's very consistent. But if you have a Samsung phone versus one of the other, branded phones, the hardware is different. And the facial recognition technology is a lot different. It actually will be broken with a picture. If you take a photo of yourself, there's some studies that show that you actually can break it because it's not doing a 3D scan necessarily. It's doing some other 2D facial recognition. Just like if anyone uses iPhotos and all of a sudden you have these people that recognize your friends in your photo album and it recognizes them, it actually just recognizes a 2D face. And that's pretty much how a lot of the other systems work. We can use this to actually capture and replace plaster or foam impression casting because it's a true 3D model. So this is a patient of mine that had an ulcer that was pretty bad and it's healing up. And this is a pretty extreme example, but I wanted to use this as an example as to how great and how powerful this tool is for the complicated patients. And in this case, I really accentuated this. I made an example of him for these types of presentations, and I put a couple extra pieces of foam over the ulcer here. And then he had a pretty prominent styloid. Doesn't really seem like it's so much here. You could see we had one of these like dancer's pads that was kind of used to offload the ulcer. You can see it in the imprint on his skin here. I just took one of these little met pads, cut this out, and I just put this on as a little example here. And this is a screen recording of how I am scanning the phone. So I usually start at the lateral side of the foot, and you'll see me do this live right now after this video. And I go towards the medial side of the foot. And then usually I'll go ahead and get the posterior aspect as well. I probably did that already. I shortened this video. There's a little hole there around the Achilles tendon. That's okay for a foot orthotic. Essentially, let me just back this up right here. Essentially, what we're looking for is a full plaster cast, simulating like a foam box or plaster cast. If we get Jeff Root in here, he and I historically, when we're doing this correctly, we really will want to have the information of get up to the bisection of the heel so we can balance the forefoot to the rear foot on the lab side, if that's what you're wanting us to do. A little side note, a little pearl, and I'll show this with Lisa as well. I like to capture the foot in the exact position that I want the orthotic to be supporting the foot. That leaves a lot less guess room for us on the lab side to make exactly the shape that you want. Exactly what you send us, that should be the shape of the orthotic. Then you get to choose the rigidity and the material and the modifications that you might need to give therapy to this patient. If you were doing an AFO, and we recommend Ritchie braces and other types of AFOs that are not gauntlets, a balance brace is okay. They can be taken with this scanner. We can get into more of that in a little bit later. This is a review of a grayscale here. So this really is kind of cool. You can see it in color. One note, when you're scanning with the iPhone in color, it's not a very high quality color. Now, I never really show my patient the colored version because they're used to seeing really high resolution. And if it's not high resolution, then they're kind of, wondering, is this high quality? But when you show it to them in grayscale, and I turn the phone around and I show them the review in grayscale like this, they are totally blown away. They think it's the coolest thing. I'm able to spin it around and show them how well this detailed image came out. And patients who've had plaster before or foam boxes really think this is super neat. Some of the questions I get are, well, it's a little tiny phone. Is it really that impressive? It is impressive. Once you use this, or if you're switching from an iPad with a structure sensor and you want to try it now on an iPhone because it has the structure sensor built into the phone now, it really goes a long way with wowing your patients. Backing up to why the color is not very good. Let me go over to the color here. The color is not good. We initially built this. We actually released this exactly 2 years ago. Gosh, coming up this next week. It's been 2 years. We have, I don't want to say doubled in size. We've more than doubled in size with the amount of doctors who've switched over to us over the past 2 years. After going through the pandemic and the meat of coronavirus and all that, we've just onboarded so many clients where we've scaled so much and we've grown leaps and bounds. So it's really exciting because of this cool technology. We were the first to the market with it. We first came out with this. It was so detailed and so beautiful in color But the problem was it took forever for that high resolution photo to be transmitted over the cellular network or even the Wi-Fi network. And you know how that goes. If you take a video, if you take a really high quality photo with your iPhone, it takes forever for it to text message or email. So we cap the size of the file to 15 megabytes. And what that does is it allows you to take up to 8 scans. You can take 30-second videos, 2 of them. You can take up to 10 photos, all in this bundle. And it's basically a digital box. So you're digitally taking this image, photos, order forms, pictures, notes, videos, sending it to the lab. When we get this, which is pretty much instantaneously, we can review this with you as soon as you're available, or immediately get started on it if the instructions are clear on the order form. So that gives you a little reason as to why the review is not very clear, and it's not as clear as you would expect it to be. And I always just show the patient this grayscale. Okay, so once we have this scan, I want to show you what we do as a next step. So we use this software called FitFoot 360 among other softwares. We actually have an older software suite called Delcam. Some of you guys might have heard of that. We also have another suite called AOMS, which is the oldest automated orthotic manufacturing software, which was developed in the 80s, actually, with John Bergman of Bergman Labs in Chicago, and a few different innovators almost 40 years ago. This is the latest and greatest software that we have found is fast to produce. It's easy for us to adjust the shape. Go ahead and take a look at this video. This is taking this patient's scan. You can see we brought it into the CAD software. We make a couple landmarks, which is pretty common in all these softwares. And the trick to these softwares, let's say you wanted to make a prefabricated orthotic. Hey, a lot of people come to you, Kevin, I want to make a prefab orthotic. I have a design I want to do. This is what I want to make. If I go to the CAD software and I want to do injection molding and make an actual product, you'll have an engineer in CAD probably spending like 4 to 5 hours getting the shape exactly right. And that's just economically not feasible. And so if any of you have tried scanning before, if you've tried a lab and the orthotic doesn't fit the patient's foot, really what happens here, I'm going to pause this for a second. Really what happens here is rather than having a software where you can be so precise so quickly, is we historically have taken just a few points and blended it very quickly, and you end up getting gapping, or a big gap between the orthotic and the arch, or the heel doesn't match up exactly right, or maybe it doesn't terminate at the metatarsal head parabola exactly how you wanted it. And these are all little idiosyncratic things that you may want out of your lab. And that's really important to find a lab. Hopefully you find us to work with, because we are set up to make sure you succeed with how you want it. If you're a new clinician, you're just getting started with orthotics, we can help you out. Or if you're very seasoned, you know exactly what you want, we can help you get this shape tailored. Some clinicians want to dorsiflex the 5th metatarsal head and plantar flex the 1st ray. If you're going to contort the arch like that, we have to make sure we're balancing it in the fashion that you want, so you're happy with that orthotic comes back. We will screen share this with you and work through some of these devices to make sure you're getting the shape that you want. And we create standards for you. So you're actually going to have a consistency with your orthotic styles, with the shape that you want for your patients. And this is really the most important part of orthotic therapy. This is this patient-specific shape of their foot, and then all the top covers, the postings, the modifications, patient-specific. I don't even really like saying custom orthotic. This is kind of new, because custom has been so diluted with library systems, which we even offer a library system if that's what you would like. We have some doctors who've used library systems before, and they will give us measurements and we'll pull libraries for them in that way. They're not L3000, so you want to make sure you're not billing L3000, but this is a cash paying patient who's getting something in between fully contoured, which is L3000. We'll get into billing a little bit later as well. Let's play this video, continue. You can see how very easily our technicians, we can look across in the frontal plane, the coronal plane, go millimeter by millimeter, and actually get the shape of the orthotic matching to the scan. If you want us to balance the forefoot to the rear foot, there's a module in here for that as well. One thing I wanted to show you with this, which is really unique about this patient, is we needed to create these offloading apertures for the ulcer and then the prominent styloid. I went a little crazy with this because I knew this was going to be a pretty cool example to show. And I made these really deep apertures, and you'll see this when we get into the lab here, what this actually looks like. So this is how we kind of can create the shape, and we customize every little piece exactly how we want it. If you drew something and you wanted a really unique offloading shape for a fibroma, this is how we're actually going to create that offloading, that button out for that unique anatomy that patient needs. And there's the final pieces, and they're going to go to our mill machine. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. I think that video just started over. Here's one of our mill machines that we have. It's a carver, and we have these MDF, which is multi-density fiberboard here. And this is essentially a drill bit right here that comes down and carves out the model. And you can see on the bottom right-hand corner here, you've got this patient's model with its offloads ready to be pressed. So here we take, for the weight of the patient, the type of orthotic. This is a high-risk diabetic patient, and I actually would never want to give this orthotic, but I'm using this as just an example for this presentation. For our sports orthotics, we're going to use polypropylene, which is our most favorite material to work with. And that's what we're doing here, just as an example. But we're heating up the polypropylene in an oven, and then we're putting it over a vacuum press right here where we suck the air out. And you can see then the orthotic is finished, and then we are going into the hand grinding process here. The finish process, to bandsaw, we cut off the extra plastic, and everything is hand finished per your prescription and per our designers what we want to actually create for the patient. All the padding is done by hand. This is where the labor, this is what you're paying for. This is why your patient, if you come to see me in my practice, I charge $550 for orthotics, and my biomechanical exam is $295. That includes a fitting and then an adjustment appointment as well. So pretty expensive, but there's a lot that goes into creating this orthotic, and it's a lot of work. And it's a lot of education, training the patient how to use the orthotic. Personally, I'm not a big fan of lifetime prescriptions. I've been incorporating a lot of multiple pairs of orthotics into my practice. I'll discount the second and third pairs for healthy patients and get them out of the orthotic into healthy shoe gear. If they're traveling or if they're on their feet full time and they need to wear it full time, that's fine. So lots to talk about there. We can do that on another call and things like that. In this particular case, take a look at this. This is a big no-no. I would never want to do this and put this at-risk patient. You can see how prominent this cuneiform bone is here and where the ulcer is. And I've got this real sharp edge from the shell of the orthotic. Would never want to do this. So this actually is just for an example of what not to do. So pretty important to make sure that you don't want to cause any oral ulcers to any at-risk patients. Here's the contralateral foot. With that, I'll show you, I have a little sani grinder in my office, and that helps me get these orthotics when there's fillers in there. If you guys need this type of equipment, we can help you source these grinders for your orthotic practice. But I think it's really important, if you have a big orthotic practice, that you get one of these if you're really involved. That being said, we have really big groups that order a lot of orthotics that have that demographic where they're okay with the patient coming back for adjustments, and they rely on us, and they're not doing a lot of control orthotics. So we really can kind of tailor what it is that you need for your patient. And it really is patient specific. And that's what I found in my practice, just to really kind of dial in what that patient needs. When you get into the rhythm and you're doing 40 orthotics a month, if you get up to that, you're going to have your rhythm. You're going to know what patients are coming in there. You're doing a pre-surgery, after surgery, plantar fasciitis, checking insurance benefits, things like that. So with that, I'm going to basically go back to, let's go back to, I'm going to stop my screen share. Hopefully you guys can all see me here. I'm going to call Lisa over here. And I just am going to, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to enter in. So you guys can see actually from soup to nuts, essentially what I'm doing here. And so let's go and share this movie recording. Okay, so let me go back here. I'll just show you the demo scan is really fun because it's a nice dinner party. If you're recruiting patients when you go out, you can just quickly go over and scan someone like this, and people love it. And you can show them a 3D model of themselves, and they think it's super cool. Again, the color's not great because the file ends up being too big. But for Lisa here, I'm just going to quickly enter her name, Lisa Knox, and her date of birth. Let's just move that up to 1985, January 1st. And I'm going to add a scan right here. And we're just going to go right ahead and do a right foot orthotic. Now, Lisa actually has come to me with knee pain and some heel pain. And we did get her in some orthotics. Let me turn my screen share off. Okay. I'm going to unplug this. And I'm going to kind of show you my quick process for a few things that I like to do. I always like to do a weight-bearing evaluation, watch the patient walk. One of the other things that I love to do, and I started making orthotics when I was 16 at REI, and I would take my patient sitting like this, and I would have both my hands come down on top of the feet. I know a lot of podiatrists don't do this. Some would be comfortable doing this and getting down, but if you ever want to feel how the mid-tarsal joint works, grasp the top of the arch like this, and go ahead and stand up, Lisa. Okay, great. And then go ahead and keep your feet here on the floor, and I want you to turn your hips all the way to the right, all the way to the right, all the way, twist your hips. And what's happening is I'm feeling her left foot totally pronate, and I'm feeling, look at how high that arch is on the right foot. Now, Lisa, slowly go the other direction and twist all the way down. And hopefully you guys can see this. Twist more, twist all the way to your left. And look at how completely flat her arch gets right here. So I will hold her, the tops of her feet like this, and I'll have the patient twist back and forth. And that really kind of introduced me to the mechanics of the mid-tarsal joint, talonavicular, navicular cuneiform, the subtalar joint when they're weight bearing. I wish I saw more podiatrists doing that because you really learn a lot. You can see one foot may be rigid. You can kind of catch a navicular or a Taylor's coalition, things like that. Go ahead and have a seat, Lisa. The other thing that I like to do now is I like to palpate the anterior superior iliac spine and pull the heel and the Achilles tendon right off that. And I want to see how far she can get out. You can see she can turn out almost 85 degrees. If I twist it a little bit more, that's at 90. And then let's see how far she can get in. She can get in only about 30 degrees. So when I cast her, when I learned how to cast, it was to hold the foot right up into the air like this, where it's vertical. And what happens with patients when you do this, if they walk with an abducted gait like this, they end up taking a higher arch. You cast the foot with a higher arch, and when they step on the orthotic, it ends up pushing too high into the arch. So if you have a patient that can't turn in as much in the hip joint, or can't internally rotate that hip and adduct the foot angle of progression here, and they go out so much like this, I actually divide that available range of motion in half and hold it right like this. And that's where I like to scan. And this is where, after I feel the arch and I go through and I find subtalar joint neutral, I pull the heel off the anterior superior iliac spine. I will also look at the posterior superior iliac spine. I'll do a much larger exam, but that's another presentation. And right now I'm essentially going to hold the foot in the exact position that I want. I now have, it looks like I've been recording that whole time, but I'm going to go back and let's see here. Add a scan. Let's get that right foot orthotic. So I just pull it up this quickly. And what I'm doing, you can see I'm scanning, or I'm about to scan. I haven't started it. There's a button right here you can hit with your thumb, or you can use the volume button. And this is something you kind of have to tweak and practice it a little bit. But in the podiatry chair, in our exam room, a little tight. I don't have the space for a video, so we opted to do it at this home office. I raise the belly button, or the heel up to about my belly button level, and that's where I'm comfortable scanning. In this case, I'm just going to kneel down like this, okay? And I'm going to hold, and I'm centering the heel right in the video, and I'm looking down at the screen. So I have a pretty good eye shot of what I'm looking at down at the screen, and I'm holding it like in the posterior aspect at about a 45-degree angle. And as I go around and scan, what's key to get a really good scan is you pretend that you have a string, a piece of yarn that's totally perpendicular to the speaker. And that's what I'm pointing at the entire surface of the foot as I go around and I come back. So I'm going to do that. I spent about 15 seconds doing it. So I'm going to hit the start button right in the center, and I'm going to come around, and I can see what's happening. Okay, great. And I've got a really good scan right here. And I can then show this by going right into the grayscale version right here. And let me hook this up. Let's see here. I'm actually going to pull up one of the other patients I had here. We can get both. We're recording. Here we go. We can see both the scans. Okay, great. So here's what this looks like. This is one of the patients that I had last week. And I can see I've got a real nice scan just like this. And let me dismiss this. I can take a look at the other side, confirm that it's a real good looking scan like this. I'm going to go back. Let's go to Lisa's and add a form. I'm going to show you guys how we do our forms here. So the form, which we're working on actually, making the form integrated to the app. Currently, we print out the form and you fill it out with a piece of paper. I know it's not the best because a lot of the iPad apps are integrated. For example, our iPad app for the structure sensor, the order form is integrated, but because it's a small phone, we found that printing it and filling out the form is actually quite easy. Your assistant can do it. And then you just do add form here. And just so you can see what I'm doing, I'm gonna put this down on the floor, and it's just like scanning a check to your bank account. You pull it up right like this, okay? And so now I'm gonna hit okay. And now I'm just going to select a clinician. And this is great because it's set up for a busy office where you might have multiple locations. So if I have my office in Riverside, right now I only see patients in Santa Monica, but I could put Kevin Rosenbloom Riverside and Kevin Rosenbloom Santa Monica, and I would have different assistants get different emails to coordinate the order so we know if it's been saved or we know if it's been submitted. The other cool thing we can do, let's just go ahead and save the data to the cloud. We can say contact me and put that note in here. And I'm going to add the note and save. Okay, great. So it says order saved. So I'm going to show you what happens on the admin side on how you manage these orders. Let me turn the screen share to, I'm just going to do my entire screen here. Okay. So here we have my inbox. Hopefully it'll come through. Here it is. Pending foot ID order, Lisa Knox. So this particular order here is pending. So you can have that set up to go to any email that you choose. And then let's say it's a patient you haven't gotten insurance authorization for, and then it comes in later in the day or later in the week, and now you can go ahead and submit the order, or the patient called and said, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and financially pay for the orthotic. Then you can go ahead and actually submit the order to the lab. And so you don't even need to be in front of the phone to actually submit the order once you save the order on the iPhone. So what I do is take scans, I save the orders, I get them off the iPhone. Let's say the iPhone breaks, or let's say the iPhone, something happens to it, is stolen. You basically have all your orders now in our HIPAA compliant Amazon Web Services server. And we have all those scans indefinitely for you. And then you're going to get foot ID order received, a confirmation. What happens 8 o'clock every night is we send out a, let's see here. I've got those are invoices. Here's an activity report. So this is an activity report that came last night of the patients that I have in-house, and it shows what was shipped today. So I'm not a very busy clinician lately. I've been working mostly on the lab side of things, and I only see patients half a day, so I don't have any too many patients in here. But this basically gives me a HIPAA compliant list of my patients. I just have the first initial, the last name, the date it was received, when it needs to ship. This was yesterday. I actually know for a fact that this was a patient I'm seeing tomorrow, and this patient as well, that I need to have these in my clinic tomorrow. This particular patient, our turnaround, this was 6/10. So we're looking at about 11 days. I think there was some questions on this, which is going to take time. So if a lot of times I'll write really confusing, I get really complicated patients. If you write a really confusing order, you want to make sure you're contacting us right away so we can process the order and get it back to you. Our turnaround time is about 5 to 7 to 8 days in-house. And we ship, because you're a Taylor member, we ship 2 days express all over the country. So clinics in New York and Maine and Florida, you're getting orthotics in 2 weeks. And we do a fantastic job with turnaround. Just make sure that all the information is clear. I'll go through our order form really quickly. This is our new order form, which is really great. And we basically have 4 models and then the 4 different materials. So we have a performance, a sports model, we have a dress model, we have a control model, and then a UCBL. So the control is just in between the UCBL and the dress. And then you get to pick your material, if it's polypro, ethyl vinyl acetate, where the whole thing is kind of like a performance diabetic device, but much higher durometer. You actually get to choose the durometer of the EVA. And then, of course, we have our different carbons. We have XT carbon and the old school TL2100 carbon, which has just actually been improved a lot. 20 years ago, it was cracking a lot, but now it's the best carbon, super lightweight, really high performance. And then we have an incredible selection of really detailed modifications, and we have a website that details everything that you could possibly want to learn about any of these modifications. I'll just kind of hover over. Let's go this here. We have this ORF guide where you can click on, let's say, valgus met wedge. I wonder what a valgus met wedge is. You can see this GIF. You can actually show your patients. We have over 3,000 images like this showing modifications up against the bones of the foot. This is a 3D CT scan. We've worked on this for years. And it's just been really, really successful for clinicians to order exactly what they want, communicate by sharing screens with us. Zoom is really helpful, and just kind of emailing different pictures or videos and things to make sure you're getting exactly what your patient needs. I'll touch on the HCPCS codes here. If you guys want to take a screenshot of this, these have, plaster supplies per splint. There are some, if you are, we do have some people in Illinois, so some people in different states that do get reimbursed for plaster splints. And it makes really good business sense if you're getting paid to use splints ethically, if that's the right thing to do or not. I'll let you guys decide on that. But they'll actually put plaster on the foot and then actually scan the plaster socks. I'll show you actually inside of our lab here what we do. We actually have a mirror, and I'm just going to go forward a little bit here. And so we use Foot ID inside our lab. So if you're sending us a foam box, or if you're sending us plaster, let's see if I've got a plaster cast. No, it doesn't look like I have a plaster cast from this video. This is actually the scanning technology that we're using when we're scanning your impressions that you send to our lab. And we go through the same CAD/CAM process. So really, when you bring this into your clinic, you're taking a big, step of wasteful material, the shipping time. If you're shipping from New York or the East Coast, and if you're shipping ground, that's a 4 or 5 day shipment to us in California. So, scanning the patient directly, or even using your scanner to scan the foam box, which we have a lot of clients doing this because they still like the presentation of plaster, or they still like the presentation of foam. If I get a really sloppy foot that I have a hard time holding, or if it's a squirmy child that I can't get to hold still, I can grab their leg and their foot and I can push it into foam really quickly. And then I'll go ahead and scan the foam box and things like that. So here's some of the A codes for STS sock. I'm going to pause this so it's not distracting, and I'll close that down. We've got the L3000 for foot insert. This is what most podiatrists are using across the country. Then you have the other codes, L3010, 3020. Some of the groups, like if you're in with unions, or if you've got some special payer and that is in your contract, you may want to look into using these codes and see if they're actually going to reimburse you for these codes. This S0395 is a foam impression casting or scanning code. And then for applying splints, this is a CPT code for applying splints if you're actually putting plaster socks on. And then this is a gait training CPT code. So with that, I'm going to kind of open up to questions and see, sorry about that. See what, okay, so we've got a question here from, Jeff, do you want to moderate the questions?
Yeah, I think Dr. Botch is going to do that. I wanted to make a comment. I'm blown away by what you're doing. I didn't know the extent of what you're doing there. I'm so impressed. That is such great stuff. I think a lot of us, I don't know, I certainly have struggled over my career to find it's always, do you have a good ped orthotist in your community? And oftentimes the answer is no. But I don't think we need that anymore, right? That question, I think, is obsolete with you being available, and you don't have to live in the same community with the technology that you've made available to us. The one that really blew me away was the plantar foot ulcer. It was like plantar medial midfoot. It looked like maybe some collapse and navicular tuberosity plantarly, and what you did to offload that is tremendous. And we have too many colleagues that, well, I'm going to rephrase that. I see too many instances of patients coming in with really, really crummy attempts to offload like that exact area with shoes and foam stuck in there and people cutting aperture pads out. And what you are doing is so just light years ahead of what I think a lot of us have available to us.
Yeah, thanks.
I see. And all right, so I'm going to kind of go through some of the questions that came in, and if you've already addressed them, you can just maybe kind of go over them real quick. And the first one is, what happens if the orthotic does not fit well?
Okay, so this is going to happen either from a clinician mistake or the psycho of the patient is not going to like what you've made for one reason or another. So this is really important. I love that we offer this because this is what I wanted when I was practicing full time. Mark on the orthotic that this is too high, just like this. Put it up against the patient's foot and take a picture and say, that's bothering the patient right there. And you send us a picture of it. And what we're going to do is pull up that file and we're going to lower it exactly where you sent us that picture. If you send us an orthotic, a new orthotic, you should never be sending us a warranty adjustment back. That you can take felt and put that on the lateral column to reduce the bite in the arch. If the arch is too high, you can put felt on the lateral side and tell the patient, hey, I want you to wear this so you get some therapy. Is it comfortable now? Great. Come back in a week. The lab is going to have a brand new one for you. And we will make a brand new orthotic for you so you're not having to take something away, spend the time to package it and send it back to us so we have to adjust it. Does that make sense? So never send us an orthotic back that needs to be adjusted. We would rather make you a brand new one. It's faster for the patient and less headache for your staff and less time. Costs us a little bit more money, but guess what? Our business has grown exponentially because we offer that service. We've won so much business because, the headache of sending orders back is a real nightmare, and coordinating that. It just takes too long. Even if it's 2 more days for that patient to wait, we'd rather get the order, get the replacement, and then send it to you right away. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Okay.
And that's free. And that's free. There's no charge for that.
The next questions kind of lead along with that. Do you offer returns, and what about warranty?
We do offer returns if needed. We have basically, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. We have to. If you get a patient that says, I need my money back, and that happens to some of you guys, give them the money back. Don't make it a big deal, and we'll give you your money back. This happens once every couple of years to podiatrists. I have some podiatrists that claim that it never happens, and that's great. I've gone for, 17 years in practice in Santa Monica. I had one patient a few years ago finally do a chargeback on their credit card for one reason or another. They couldn't get in to see me on time, and they were upset, and it happens. You have these patients. So we're in partnership with you. If you have to eat some costs, we're going to eat those costs with you. We're in it to work with you for the next 30 years.
And the warranty?
It's a general 3-month warranty, but we're very loose on this. We have a relationship with you. We have a single point of contact, or we call them a SPOC. And so your SPOC is going to know your assistant by first name, and you're going to know one of our 5 SPOCs by their first name, who's essentially your account manager, but is the single point of contact. So you tell us what's going on. We don't want to waste your time. We just want to get the orthotic right. If we need to do something, to fix it, we're going to get it right. How often does this happen? Every once in a while. It's the nature of what we do. And so we're not going to fight you on it. There's nothing worse than when you have a vendor that fights you on little things here and there. If you're spending several thousand dollars with us in a month, the average client's going to spend, $1,500 to $2,000 to $2,500. Some clients are spending $20,000 a month. We're gonna warranty everything we can left and right and make sure that you're happy. That's really important. Yeah.
Okay, and I have, I believe, one more. Can we order second pairs?
Yeah, of course. If you want to get second pairs for your patients, we have the scans on file indefinitely. And you can order different pairs for dress shoes, sports shoes. We have over 80 models of orthotics once you dig into our big offering for sports specific, everything from water shoes to jogging to marathoning, pediatric devices, kids soccer devices. We've got quite a lot once you start looking at our website and you see what's available.
Great. Thank you very much for that. And that's all I see for now. There might be a few more. Let's see. Sarah Clark says, "Hi, Kevin. Glad to be here to learn from you tonight." Thought I'd pass that on. We have another question here. Why are you using vacuum construction? Isn't your system able to do direct mill with your accommodations?
Why are we still using vacuum construction instead of do direct milled with your accommodations? Well, I'm not a huge fan personally of direct milled. I don't have a direct milled in front of me. I do have this 3D printed device, which is kind of similar. Direct milled is basically how diabetic devices are made, and I don't have a good diabetic device made here. So we do them for diabetic devices, but for functional orthotics, I like to heat up plastic and press it to the positive model. So if this is the positive model here, and this is what we carve out, and we heat this plastic up, you get a memory and you get a rebound in a type of material that you can heat up and you can work with a little bit. When it's direct milled, it's very difficult to work with it. It's kind of stuck as it is and in its place. Now, a lot of labs do direct milled, and a lot of people do like it. We do have the ability to make a direct milled orthotic if that's what you want. We also have the ability to do 3D printed orthotics if that's what you want. But the cool thing about creating a positive model, it's the most versatile. I can press any type of material to it, carbon, polypropylene, EVA. I can make modifications to it. I can quickly adjust it. And this is recyclable. So it creates the least amount of waste. We have plastic that's recyclable, and this is recyclable. So in Riverside, we have a nice city service that comes and picks those things up.
Great. Is the iPhone truly making a 3D scan? And if yes, how repeatable is it?
Every time you are looking at your Face ID, the iPhone is actually scanning your face. It is extremely repeatable. It's one of the most accurate scanners, arguably more accurate. We've had better outcomes than our structure sensor, than the iPad scanner. And if you guys aren't familiar with that, this is the structure sensor right here. And it's basically the same system. You've got a dot projector, a sensor, and a camera kind of all built in, but now you've got it built into the iPhone. And it is a true 3D model. You can visualize everything in 3D yourself. You can take scans of basically anything you want to and view them using Foot ID, the app Foot ID. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Another question here says, so I have been using this scanner for 4 months. I have not seen the quick turnaround. They sent something out to the lab, and there was like about a 5-week turnaround. They were just wondering why that was.
Yeah. Let me take a look at that. It looks like Sally, I can see your question there. There's going to be some reason for it. Either we didn't know, who knows? We didn't. If you're new to us, this happens a lot. We'll have someone send in and we don't have your account information sorted out. We don't know how to get a hold of you. One of those things, or we try to get a hold of you, and we never heard back. That happens actually quite a lot until we get like the communication flowing in the office. But I will make a note of that, and I'll email you, and we will figure out why that is. It could have been something with FedEx. We've had that issue as well, where we've had certain people in some locations, they've held packages for a long time. That was a big problem during the pandemic. It doesn't seem to be an issue anymore, as FedEx seems to be catching up, but we certainly can get to the bottom of that, Sally.
And a follow-up question there. They're finding it difficult to get a full AFO scan. And do you have any tips?
Yeah, the full AFO scan is really difficult. And I was really gung-ho about it initially, and I really thought it was going to be a good technology to get the full AFO scan. The trick of it is, let me take a Ritchie brace here as an example. The trick of it is you have to get the foot in a position where you can go all the way around the foot. Now, that being said, the Ritchie brace and the balance brace and things like that, as long as you get the surface area where the plastic is coming in contact with the foot, we can mill a positive model of the AFO and make this. So it's important to know the Ritchie brace is not custom beyond the supramalleolar part right here. These are custom fit just by size, these uprights, unless you order one that is fully custom. And you have to specify that. And that is, in that case, then you need to go ahead and scan all the way up as high as the brace is going to be. So for a brace like this, in fact, these gauntlet style braces, these Arizona style braces, let me actually use this one, because I actually don't recommend doing a full 3D scan, because it's really hard to take the phone, and how I recommend you do it. You put the patient in a prone position, or you can get them kneeling in a chair and stand behind them like this, and then you can scan, if that makes sense. But it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And for podiatry, you've got to have some real high patience to deal with AFOs, and you have to have some understanding, and a patient that understands that, with what we're used to with the custom orthotics, there's usually variables where there's enough tolerance where the patient will get something that works. But if you look at someone who gets a prosthetic leg, or if you get someone who, I'm just going to use this as an example, a banker on Wall Street getting a $2,000 shoe, they make a check shoe and they make a check socket. And the reason being is you have an impression that's negative, then you make positive, then you make the negative again. And with orthotics, it's actually just a small little thing. There's not too many variables. The heel and the arch height, making sure that it's right. Generally get it close enough. But when you start doing it with an AFO, you have some problems here, especially since all that rotation and pronation that's happening from the hip all the way down to the subtalar joint and the mid-tarsal joints, where there's a lot of movement that's going on in this AFO. If you don't get that scan exactly right, you just have to know there's going to be some issues. We may have to you want support here if it's posterior tibial tendon dysfunction, but you don't want it to be too much and you want to be too little. That's a real art to get that right and to get that scan exactly right. For me, I still like using Plaster of Paris, believe it or not. I have a technique. It's called the Rosenbloom method. It's on YouTube. Email me if you want. I show you how I put plaster on for really complicated cases. I'll actually push the foot into a foam box. I'll wrap the foot in plaster and then use the foam box supporting the arch in the exact fashion I want. And I have a presentation on that as well for crow boots. Really important to get this super exact. STS socks are a fast, good, easy solution. A lot of our clients are putting STS socks on. They're taking a broomstick. They're leaning the broom up against like this, up against a table. They're taking the STS sock and holding it like this. And now this is not shaking around and moving. And when you shake it around and move, it's really hard. You're going to get that red flashing on the scanning. You're able to very comfortably scan the cast. So if that makes sense, I don't have an STS sock with me, but this is an STS sock, not a brace. Put that on your patient, put that over a broom handle or something like this, and then you can go around and scan that STS sock. That way you don't have to ship it to us. We're going to get the scan much faster, and you don't have to box it up. And it's exactly what we're doing in the lab. We're scanning your STS socks. So you can either scan them in your clinic and have your assistant do it, and we have a dedicated foot ID specialist. His name's Peter Magpayo. He's available full-time. All he's doing is helping people learn how to scan. So we have that resource to get your assistants trained on scanning.
Great. And then we'll do the final question of the night. And Kevin, if after responding to that question, if you could also let us know how somebody could get started with you and or your company and your contact info. So the final question is for imaging for an L3000, it requires 2 hands. So how can somebody use the iPhone scanner?
So accurate and randomly brain imaging casting for an L3000 requires 2 hands. How do I use the iPhone sensor? Well, we have this load lever, which is for that exact reason. If you want to comfortably put the patient into a position and use this in any fashion you want, hopefully you guys can see this. You can load the 5th, you can load the 1st. If you're talking about holding the talus head for subtalar joint neutral and palpating that, what I found is you can use the chair, the podiatry chair, to roll the gastrocnemius complex and make sure that in holding just with one finger or with one hand, you can use the chair to help keep the subtalar joint in a neutral position. That being said, I do have patients with like a rigid forefoot varus, and I cannot get them with just one hand in that position that I want, for sure. But someone like Lisa, or I'd say 90%, 9 out of 10 patients, I'm able to actually manipulate it and hold it. Plantar flex to first ray. And again, my technique is doing the cast balancing actually in foot balancing. So I'm doing the lab's job here, holding in subtalar joint neutral, rear foot to the forefoot so they're perpendicular. So I don't have a forefoot varus, or I don't have a plantar flex first ray. And I get the exact shape of the orthotic that I want in this clinical setting and scan right like this. But I do have those patients where I really need to torque it. And if that's the case, I come in here, I do it with 2 hands. I stand like this, I cast it, and an assistant goes ahead and scans. That's the solution, is to have the assistant scanning the patient when you've got that rigid foot that requires some torquing and twisting and manipulation.
Okay, so go ahead and let our attendees know how they can start with you and your company, and we'll let Jeff.
I'll put my email in the chat here. Kevin at KevinRootMedical.com. Our phone number is 877-SOS-FEET. And I can put this up here again real quick. Let's see here. That should have my email on it. Kevin at KevinRootMedical.com. That's our website. We have a chat feature. We start at 4 a.m. on Pacific time, so that's 7 a.m. East Coast time with customer service support. And you can chat with our customer service agents on our website, direct on our website. We are super accessible and super looking forward to working with you guys.
Thank you, Kevin.
That's great, Kevin. And thank you. So thank you for being so kind to share your email. Just in case anybody might be listening, I'm going to read it again. It's Kevin at KevinRootMedical.com. And that's ROOT, no spaces or dashes or anything. weird like that. We're going to mention next month's Taylor Tuesday, which I'm trying to share that slide. So again, Kevin, thank you so much. Thanks for being with us. Also, we should share that Kevin and his company are vendors of Taylor Medical. So when you are a Taylor Medical member, you get discount to all of the wonderful products that we were just talking about. Thanks for joining us. Next month, if you're a regular, you know that we typically do these earlier in the month. Next month, the first Tuesday of the month is right around July the 4th. So we're going to do it at a different date, which will be July 19. And for those of you that get the emails and the reminders, you'll get all that stuff. But if you want to mark your calendar now, the next Taylor Tuesday webinar will be July 19th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I will be speaking at that one about hot topics in coding and compliance, help to make sure that all of our viewers are compliant and doing things correctly. So we'll close here to finish on time. Thank you, Kevin, again for your participation tonight. And on behalf of Dr. Bacha and all Taylor Medical, thank you to those who attended.
Very welcome. Thanks, everybody.